The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of life and energy. 6 months had passed since the Republic nearly died, since a Sith Lord's machinations came within hours of exterminating the Jedi Order. Chancellor Palpatine was dead, buried beneath the rubble of his own ambition. Order 66 had been discovered and deleted. The clone troopers were being freed, one chip extraction at a time. And yet, as Anakin Skywalker stood in the Jedi Temple's rebuilt meditation chamber, he couldn't shake the feeling that the war wasn't truly over. It was merely changing form. "You're brooding again." Padme's voice carried warmth and gentle teasing as she entered the chamber, their infant daughter Leia cradled against her chest. Somewhere in their apartment across the city, Luke slept under the watchful eye of C-3PO, blissfully unaware of the galaxy's troubles. Anakin turned from the window, his expression softening at the sight of his wife and child. This was what he'd almost sacrificed everything for. This moment of peace, this family he'd been told he could never have. The Reformed Jedi Council had abolished the attachment prohibition 3 months ago, acknowledging that love was not a path to darkness, but a strength to be channeled. Anakin and Padme had finally married publicly, their union celebrated rather than hidden. "Not brooding," he said, crossing to take Leia from her arms. The baby gurgled, her tiny hand grasping at his finger. "Thinking. There's a difference. The difference being that thinking involves actually solving problems, while brooding just means staring dramatically out windows." Padme arched an eyebrow, but her smile took the sting from her words. Before Anakin could respond, his comlink chirped urgently. Master Windu's voice crackled through the device, tight with controlled tension. "Skywalker, report to the council chamber immediately. We have a situation." The situation, as it turned out, was catastrophic. Holographic displays filled the council chamber with images of destruction. Republic cruisers burning in the void, planetary defense platforms torn apart, entire fleets reduced to debris fields. Master Windu stood at the center of the room, his expression carved from stone as he gestured to the tactical readouts. 6 hours ago, a separatist armada emerged from hyperspace in the Tian cluster, he announced to the assembled council members. 40 capital ships, 200 support vessels, and over 1,000 droid starfighters. They struck without warning, overwhelming our garrison forces within minutes. "Impossible," Ki-Adi-Mundi said, his holographic form flickering with interference. "The Separatist fleet was scattered after Palpatine's death. Most of their leadership surrendered or fled to the Outer Rim." "Most," Mace Windu agreed grimly, "but not all. Intelligence reports confirm that General Grievous survived the war's end. He's been rebuilding in the unknown regions, salvaging droid factories, recruiting mercenaries, and apparently planning this offensive for months." Anakin studied the tactical display, his mind automatically calculating trajectories and force dispositions. The attack pattern was classic Grievous, brutal, efficient, designed to inflict maximum casualties before defenders could organize. But something about it felt wrong. "This doesn't make sense," he said slowly. "Grievous is a butcher, but he's not stupid. He has to know he can't win a prolonged war against the Republic, not without Dooku's political connections or Palpatine's shadow support. Why launch an offensive now, when we're finally stabilizing?" "Perhaps he believes the Republic is still weak," Obi-Wan suggested from his seat on the council. "We've lost nearly 40% of our clone forces to the liberation process. Many systems are still recovering from the civil unrest following Palpatine's exposure. If Grievous thinks we're vulnerable, then he's betting everything on a quick strike." Shock T finished. "Overwhelm our defenses before we can respond. Capture key systems, and force a negotiated settlement that lets him carve out his own territory." Master Yoda, recovered from his wounds on Kashyyyk and restored to his position on the council, closed his eyes in meditation. "More to this there is. Sense it I do. A shadow behind the shadow. Grievous alone this is not." The ancient Jedi's words sent a chill through Anakin's spine. He'd felt it too, a darkness lurking at the edges of his perception, familiar yet alien, like an echo of something that should have died with Palpatine. "We need to respond immediately," Mace Windu declared. Master Kenobi, you'll take the Third Fleet to reinforce the Tion cluster. Skywalker, coordinate with Captain Rex and the Clone Liberation Corps. We need every free trooper combat ready within 48 hours. Master Tai, contact the Kaminoans and accelerate the chip removal procedures. If Grievous is targeting our forces, he'll prioritize systems where compromised clones are still stationed. And if there's something else behind this attack, Anakin asked. Something connected to Palpatine? Mace Windu's jaw tightened. Then we find it and destroy it. The Sith may be patient, but they're not immortal. Palpatine is dead. Whatever remnants of his legacy remain, we'll root them out. As the council dispersed to their assignments, Anakin lingered, watching the holographic display cycle through images of burning ships and dying soldiers. 6 months of relative peace, of believing the worst was over. 6 months of healing, rebuilding, hoping. It had all been an illusion. The war had never ended. It had simply been waiting for the right moment to return. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. Anakin found Rex in the Clone Liberation Corps headquarters, a converted warehouse in Coruscant's industrial district that had become the nerve center for the galaxy-wide chip removal effort. Hundreds of freed clones worked at communication stations, coordinating with Jedi across dozens of systems, tracking compromised units, and organizing extraction teams. Rex stood before a massive holographic map showing the status of clone forces throughout the Republic. Green for liberated, red for still compromised, yellow for units currently undergoing the removal process. There was far more red than Anakin liked to see. General, Rex snapped to attention, old habits dying hard despite the new regulations that had eliminated mandatory salutes. I heard about Grievous. My men are ready to deploy within the hour. I know they are. Anakin clasped Rex's shoulder, meeting his captain's eyes with the respect of an equal rather than a superior. But I need something else from you first. How many compromised units are stationed in the Tion cluster? Rex's expression darkened as he pulled up the relevant data. 12 battalions, roughly 50,000 men. The chip removal teams hadn't reached that sector yet. It was considered low priority since the fighting had ended there. He paused, the implications settling over him like a shroud. If Grievous attacks those units, he won't be fighting them, Anakin finished. He'll be using them. The chips respond to command codes, and Palpatine gave those codes to his inner circle. If Grievous got his hands on them somehow, then he could turn our own brothers against us. Again. Rex's fist clenched at his side. General, we can't let that happen. Those men deserve to be freed, not used as weapons against the Republic they've bled for. Agreed. That's why I'm putting you in charge of a rapid extraction team. Get to the Tion cluster ahead of Obi-Wan's fleet, locate the compromised units, and start removing chips before Grievous can activate them. Rex nodded sharply, already calculating logistics and personnel requirements. But something in his eyes gave Anakin pause, a shadow of doubt, of pain, that the captain usually kept buried deep. Rex? What is it? The clone was silent for a long moment, staring at the red dots on the holographic map. Sometimes I wonder if we're moving fast enough. Every day we spend planning and coordinating. More of my brothers wake up with that chip still in their heads, knowing they could be turned into murderers at any moment. Some of them can't handle it. We've had incidents. Anakin understood without needing details. The psychological toll of knowing you carried a kill switch in your own brain, that your loyalty and free will could be stripped away with a single command. It was a burden no soldier should have to bear. We're doing everything we can, Anakin said quietly, and we're doing it faster than anyone thought possible. 6 months ago, the chips were a secret. Now we've freed nearly half the army. That's millions of lives, Rex. Millions of your brothers who get to choose their own futures. And millions more who are still slaves. Rex's voice was hard, uncompromising. I won't stop until every last one of them is free, General. No matter what it costs. Anakin felt a swell of pride and sorrow in equal measure. This was what the Republic should have been fighting for all along, not territory or political power, but the fundamental right of every being to own their own mind. Then let's get to work, he said. We've got a war to win and an army to liberate. The Tyon cluster burned. Rex dropped from the Alat gunship before it had fully touched down, his boots hitting the scorched permacrete of Lyanna's capital city, while droid starfighters screamed overhead. The Clone Liberation Corps' rapid response team, 40 of his most trusted freed brothers, followed close behind, their weapons tracking targets through smoke-choked streets that had been peaceful 12 hours ago. Kix, status on the garrison, Rex barked into his helmet comm, ducking behind a collapsed wall as a squadron of B-2 super battle droids marched past their position. The medic's voice crackled back, strained with urgency. Not good, Captain. The 407th Battalion is holed up in the Planetary Defense Command Center. They're still compromised, all 8,000 of them. And Rex, someone's been broadcasting activation codes on a loop. The chips are fighting their conditioning. Some of the men are seizing, others are just frozen. They can't tell friend from enemy. Rex felt his jaw clench behind his helmet. He'd seen the effects of partial chip activation during the initial Order 66 crisis. Brothers caught between their programming and their humanity, minds tearing themselves apart as competing directives warred for dominance. It was a special kind of cruelty, one that only Sith engineering could produce. Can you jam the signal? Already tried. It's coming from multiple sources, bouncing off separatist relay satellites. We need to take out the entire network to stop it. Then we do this the hard way. Rex signaled his team forward, weaving through the rubble toward the Defense Command Center. Kix, prep your surgical kit. We're going to remove those chips one at a time if we have to. Captain, there are 8,000 men in that building. Even if we could reach them without getting shot, we don't have enough medics or equipment to. Then we improvise. Rex's voice carried the iron certainty that had made him one of the most respected officers in the Grand Army. Those are our brothers in there, Kix. We're not leaving them behind. The command center loomed ahead, a fortress of reinforced duracrete bristling with defensive turrets. Under normal circumstances, those guns would be targeting the separatist forces swarming the city. Instead, they tracked erratically, firing at Republic and separatist targets alike as the compromised clones inside struggled against their programming. Rex raised his macro binoculars, scanning the building's perimeter. I count 20 entry points, all heavily defended. We'll need a distraction, too. A familiar voice cut through his tactical assessment. Perhaps I can help with that. Rex spun to find Ahsoka Tano dropping from a nearby rooftop, her white lightsabers ignited, a fierce grin splitting her face. Behind her, a squad of Mandalorian warriors in distinctive blue and gray armor descended on jetpacks. Commander Tano. Rex couldn't help the smile that spread beneath his helmet. I thought you were assigned to the Outer Rim campaign. I was. Then I heard my favorite captain was walking into a death trap with 40 men against 8,000. Ahsoka's eyes sparkled with the same reckless courage that had defined her since her days as Anakin's Padawan. Figured you could use some backup. And the Mandalorians? One of the armored warriors stepped forward, removing her helmet to reveal the scarred, determined face of Bo-Katan Kryze. The Clone Liberation Corps freed 300 of my people from Imperial labor camps last month. Lady Tano suggested we might return the favor. Her lips curved in a predator's smile. Besides, we owe General Grievous several debts. Today seems like a good day to collect. Rex felt the tactical situation shift from desperate to merely dangerous. With Ahsoka's force abilities and Mandalorian air support, they might actually have a chance. All right, he said, pulling up a holographic schematic of the command center. Here's the plan. Bo-Katan, your warriors hit the eastern turrets. Draw their fire, keep them focused outward. Ahsoka, you and I go through the maintenance tunnels here. He pointed to a narrow access point on the building's northern face. We reach the central comm array and shut down the activation signal at its source. Once the broadcast stops, the chips will return to dormant status. Then Kix and the extraction teams move in and start removing them. And if the compromised clones try to stop us? Bo-Katan asked. Rex's voice hardened with painful resolve. Non-lethal takedowns only. Stun bolts, sedatives, whatever it takes. These men are victims, not enemies. We save them, or we die trying. The Mandalorian leader nodded slowly, something like respect flickering in her eyes. You clone soldiers are strange creatures. Any other army would write off compromised troops as acceptable losses. We're not any other army, Rex replied simply. We're brothers. The assault began 3 minutes later. Mandalorian jetpacks screamed across the smoke-filled sky as Bo-Katan's warriors strafed the eastern defenses. Their precise weapons fire disabling turrets without killing the clone operators inside. Return fire blazed upward, chaotic and unfocused as the compromised troopers fought against programming that demanded they eliminate all threats while their conscious minds struggled to identify friend from foe. Rex and Ahsoka moved through the maintenance tunnels like ghosts, the Togrutas' force-enhanced senses guiding them past patrol routes and security checkpoints. Twice they encountered compromised clones, brothers whose eyes had gone flat and mechanical, whose weapons rose on instinct before confusion and horror flooded back into their expressions. Ahsoka dealt with them gently, using the Force to ease them into unconsciousness rather than striking them down. Each time, Rex knelt beside the fallen soldier and checked their vital signs, making sure they'd wake up again. "We're close," Ahsoka whispered, her montrals twitching as she sensed the comm array's electromagnetic signature ahead. "But Rex, there's something else. Something dark. Can you feel it?" Rex couldn't feel the Force the way Ahsoka did, but he'd learned to trust her instincts over 3 years of war. "What kind of dark?" "I'm not sure. It's like—" She paused, searching for words. "Like an echo, a shadow of something that should be dead but isn't quite gone." Before Rex could respond, they rounded a corner and found themselves facing the comm array chamber. Inside, banks of equipment hummed with power, broadcasting the activation signal that was tearing thousands of clone minds apart. And standing at the central console, his skeletal fingers dancing across the controls, was General Grievous. The cyborg warlord turned at their approach, his reptilian eyes gleaming with malevolent satisfaction. "Ah, the Jedi's pet Togruta and her clone companion. I was wondering when you'd arrive." "Grievous." Ahsoka's lightsabers blazed to life, casting white light across the chamber. "Surrender now and you'll receive a fair trial. Continue this attack and I'll end you myself." Grievous's laugh was a mechanical rattling, like bones scraping across metal. Bold words from a child who couldn't defeat me even when she had her master's protection. His chest plates split open, revealing 4 arms that unfolded with serpentine grace, each one igniting a stolen lightsaber. Blue, green, purple, yellow, trophies from Jedi he'd murdered over the years. "But I'm not here to fight you, little Jedi. I'm here to deliver a message." He gestured to the comm array behind him. "This signal? It's just the beginning. Your precious Republic thinks it won when Palpatine died, but the Sith Lord's plans extended far beyond his own lifetime. He left contingencies." "What contingencies?" Rex demanded, his blasters trained on Grievous's central processor. "You'll find out soon enough, but I'll give you a hint." Grievous's eyes narrowed with cruel amusement. "Mustafar. The answers you seek are on Mustafar, assuming you survive the next few minutes." He slammed his fist down on the console, and every alarm in the building began to scream. "Self-destruct sequence activated," a mechanical voice announced. "Detonation in 3 minutes." Grievous laughed again as hidden panels slid open around him, revealing an escape pod. "Choose wisely, Jedi. Chase me and let 8,000 clones die, or save them and let me escape. Either way, I win." The cyborg general vanished into the pod, which rocketed upward through an emergency shaft toward the battle raging above. Ahsoka moved to pursue, but Rex grabbed her arm. "The clones," he said, his voice tight. "We have to shut down the signal and evacuate the building. Grievous can wait." Ahsoka's expression twisted with frustration, but she nodded. "You're right. Help me with the console." They worked frantically, Rex's technical training combining with Ahsoka's force-enhanced intuition to navigate the Separatist encryption. With 30 seconds to spare, the activation signal died, and throughout the building, 8,000 clone troopers collapsed as the competing directives in their minds finally fell silent. "Kix, get the extraction teams in now," Rex shouted into his comm. "We've got wounded clones and a building about to explode." The next 2 minutes were chaos. Freed clones dragging their unconscious brothers through corridors, Mandalorians providing air evacuation, Ahsoka using the Force to hold collapsing sections of ceiling long enough for survivors to escape. When the command center finally detonated, sending a pillar of fire into the Liana sky, Rex stood amid the rescued soldiers and allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. They'd saved nearly 7,000. The rest had been too deep in the building, too far gone to reach in time. 7,000 saved, 1,000 lost. A victory by any military standard. But Rex didn't feel victorious. He felt the weight of those 1,000 deaths like stones in his chest, each one a brother he'd failed to save. And Grievous's words echoed in his mind, carrying the promise of greater horrors to come. Mustafar. The answers were on Mustafar. Mustafar greeted them with fire. Anakin stood at the viewport of his Jedi interceptor as the volcanic world filled his vision. Rivers of molten rock carving bright orange wounds across a landscape of ash and darkness. He'd never been to this planet before, but something about it felt familiar. A resonance in the Force that made his skin crawl and his mechanical hand clench involuntarily. "I've got a bad feeling about this," Ahsoka said through the comm, her own starfighter falling into formation beside his. Behind them, Rex's modified Elat carried a strike team of freed clones, their weapons ready for whatever awaited below. "You and me both." Anakin studied the scanner readings, frowning at the anomalies they displayed. "There's a structure on the northern hemisphere, massive energy signatures, heavy shielding, and..." He paused, reaching out through the Force. "Dark side presence. Strong. This place was important to Palpatine." "A fortress?" Rex's voice crackled through the channel. "More than that, it feels like a wound. Like something terrible happened here, or was meant to happen." Anakin shook off the sensation, focusing on the tactical situation. "We go in careful. Standard reconnaissance formation until we know what we're dealing with." They descended through clouds of volcanic ash, the heat registering even through their ship's environmental systems. The structure Anakin had detected emerged from the hellscape like a black blade thrust into the planet's flesh. A towering citadel of obsidian and durasteel, its architecture unmistakably Sith in design. "Landing platform ahead," Ahsoka reported. "No defensive fire. Either they don't know we're here or they're expecting us." Anakin brought his interceptor down on the platform's edge, his lightsaber already in hand before the cockpit opened. The air hit him like a physical force, scorching, sulfurous, thick with the stench of brimstone and something else. Something that smelled like decay masked by sterile chemicals. Ahsoka landed beside him, her white blades igniting as she scanned their surroundings. Rex and his team followed, spreading out in defensive formation with the professional efficiency that defined the Clone Liberation Corps. "This place gives me the creeps," one of the clones muttered. Jesse, his helmet bearing the distinctive Republic insignia he'd worn since the war's early days. "Stay focused," Rex ordered quietly. "We don't know what's waiting inside." They moved through the Citadel's entrance, a massive doorway carved with Sith hieroglyphics that seemed to writhe in the flickering light of distant lava flows. Inside, the temperature dropped dramatically, climate control systems maintaining an artificial chill that stood in stark contrast to the inferno outside. Corridors stretched in multiple directions, each one lined with alcoves containing artifacts, holocrons, and specimens preserved in bacta-tanks. Anakin paused before one such tank, his breath catching. Inside, suspended in greenish fluid, floated what appeared to be a human male, young, perhaps 20 standard years, with features that seemed somehow familiar. Tubes and wires connected the body to monitoring equipment, vital signs displaying on a nearby console. "What is this place?" Ahsoka breathed, her voice echoing in the sterile silence. "A laboratory." Anakin moved to the console, his fingers flying across the controls as he accessed the facility's database. Palpatine's private research station. He was experimenting, cloning, genetic manipulation, midi-chlorian enhancement. His voice hardened as more data scrolled across the screen. He was trying to create the perfect vessel for the dark side, a body capable of containing unlimited Sith power. Rex approached another tank, this one containing a figure that made his blood run cold. "General, you need to see this." Anakin crossed to Rex's position and felt the world tilt beneath him. The figure in the tank was him. Not exactly him, younger perhaps, with subtle differences in bone structure and muscle definition. But the face was unmistakably Anakin Skywalker's, frozen in peaceful unconsciousness, waiting to be awakened. Palpatine was cloning me, Anakin said, his voice hollow. He was creating copies of me. But why? I refused his offer. I chose the light. Did he know you would refuse? Ahsoka asked quietly. Or did he have contingency plans in case you did? The answer came not from the database, but from the shadows at the far end of the laboratory. The master always planned for every possibility. The voice was young, male, and carried an edge of barely contained rage. A figure emerged from the darkness, tall, lean, dressed in black robes that seemed to drink in the light. His face was hidden beneath a hood, but the red lightsaber that ignited in his hand left no doubt about his allegiance. He created me to be what you refused to become, the figure continued, pushing back his hood to reveal features that were almost Anakin's, but twisted by years of dark side corruption. Yellow eyes burned with hatred in a face that might have been handsome before rage carved permanent lines into its expression. I am what you could have been, Skywalker. What you should have been. I am the son of the Sith, and I will complete what my father began. Palpatine wasn't your father, Anakin said, his own lightsaber blazing to life. He was a monster who grew you in a tank and filled your head with lies. He gave me purpose. The clone's voice cracked with desperate conviction. He showed me the truth about the Jedi, about the Republic, about you. You had everything, power, potential, destiny, and you threw it away for sentiment, for weakness, for love. He spat the word like a curse. But I won't make your mistakes. The Empire will rise with or without the original Palpatine, and I will be its instrument. Ahsoka moved to flank the dark clone, her white blades casting stark contrast against his crimson weapon. You don't have to do this. The war is over. Palpatine is dead. You can choose a different path. There is no other path for me. The clone's yellow eyes fixed on Anakin with burning intensity. I was created for one purpose, to destroy the Jedi and rule the galaxy in my father's name. That purpose is all I have, all I am. Then I'm sorry, Anakin said, settling into a combat stance, because I can't let you succeed. The battle that erupted shattered containment tanks and sent laboratory equipment flying. Palpatine's clone fought with savage ferocity, his blade work a corrupted mirror of Anakin's own Form V style, twisted by dark side aggression into something brutal and unpredictable. He was fast, impossibly fast, enhanced by whatever genetic modifications Palpatine had engineered into his creation. Anakin and Ahsoka worked in perfect synchronization, their years of partnership allowing them to anticipate each other's movements without conscious thought. But the clone matched them, blow for blow, his rage fueling strength that seemed to grow with each exchange. You can't win, the clone snarled, locking blades with Anakin while simultaneously deflecting Ahsoka's strike. I have your power without your weaknesses. Your attachments make you hesitate, make you hold back. I have no such limitations. You're wrong. Anakin pushed forward, driving the clone back toward the laboratory's central chamber. My attachments don't make me weak. They remind me what I'm fighting for. He thought of Padme, waiting for him on Coruscant, of Luke and Leia, innocent lives that deserved a galaxy free from Sith tyranny, of Rex and his brothers, fighting to be more than weapons, of Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, and everyone he loved. The Force swelled within him, not the cold fire of the dark side, but something warmer, brighter, a power drawn from connection rather than isolation, from love rather than hate. His next strike sent the clone staggering backward. Palpatine raised you to believe that power comes from anger and fear, Anakin said, pressing his advantage. But he was wrong. The dark side isn't strength. It's a chain. It binds you to your own hatred, makes you a slave to your worst impulses. I know because I almost fell into that trap myself. Lies! The clone unleashed a torrent of Force lightning, but Anakin caught it on his blade, redirecting the energy into the floor. The dark side gave my father everything. He ruled the galaxy. And he died alone, buried under his own building, with nothing but hatred to keep him company. Anakin's voice softened with something approaching compassion. That's not strength. That's the saddest fate I can imagine. For just an instant, something flickered in the clone's yellow eyes. Doubt, confusion, a crack in the armor of certainty that Palpatine had built around his mind. Then the moment passed and rage flooded back. I don't need your pity, Skywalker. I need you dead. The clone gathered the dark side around him like a cloak, preparing an attack that would level the entire laboratory. Anakin could feel the energy building, could sense the destructive potential coiling within Palpatine's creation. He had a choice: strike the clone down before he could unleash that power, or find another way. Anakin made his decision. He deactivated his lightsaber. What are you doing? Ahsoka shouted, her blade still raised defensively, showing him what strength really looks like. Anakin met the clone's shocked gaze with steady calm. Go ahead, strike me down. Prove that violence is the only answer. But know this: killing me won't fill the emptiness inside you. It won't make Palpatine's love real. It won't give you the purpose you're searching for. The clone's hands trembled, dark energy crackling between his fingers. You're trying to trick me. I'm trying to save you. Anakin took a step forward, unarmed, vulnerable. Because that's what the Jedi are supposed to do. Not just fight the darkness, but offer light to those lost within it. Palpatine never gave you a choice about who you'd become. I'm giving you one now. The laboratory fell silent save for the hum of machinery and the distant rumble of volcanic activity. The clone stood frozen, his attack undelivered, his certainty crumbling. And then, slowly, the dark energy began to fade. The Senate rotunda erupted into chaos. 3,000 senators shouted over each other, their voices blending into a roar of accusation and counter-accusation that threatened to shake the ancient chamber's foundations. At the center of the storm, Supreme Chancellor Bail Organa stood at the podium, his normally composed features tight with barely suppressed frustration. Order! The Senate will have order! His amplified voice cut through the din, but only barely. Senator Thalmus has the floor. The Mun senator from the banking clan rose in his hovering platform, his elongated features twisted with righteous indignation. Thank you, Chancellor. As I was saying before, this body descended into mob rule. The Clone Rights Act represents an unconscionable drain on Republic resources. We are spending trillions of credits on medical procedures, rehabilitation programs, and citizenship integration for beings who were created to serve a specific military function. Now that function has ended, and we find ourselves burdened with millions of unemployable veterans who... Unemployable? Rex's voice rang out from the visitors' gallery, where he stood in full armor alongside a delegation of freed clone representatives. We won your war for you. We bled for this republic while you counted your profits from the conflict. And now you call us a burden? The captain is out of order, Thalmus sniffed. Non-senators are not permitted to address this body without formal invitation. Then I'll address it. Senator Padme Amidala's platform glided forward, her brown eyes blazing with the same fire that had made her a legend on Naboo. The clones are not a burden, Senator Thalmus. They are citizens of this republic, entitled to the same rights and protections as any other sentient being. The Clone Rights Act merely formalizes what should have been obvious from the beginning, that creating intelligent life carries responsibilities. Responsibilities that are bankrupting the Treasury, another senator shouted. Perhaps the Treasury wouldn't be so strained if certain banking clan interests hadn't profited so handsomely from a war they helped engineer, Padme shot back. The Senate Investigation Committee has documented billions of credits in suspicious transactions between the banking clan and separatist front corporations. Should we discuss those findings? Senator Thalmus? The Moon's face paled, but before he could respond, a new voice cut through the chamber, cold, commanding, dripping with aristocratic contempt. This bickering accomplishes nothing. Senator Sly Moore, Palpatine's former aide, and one of the few members of his inner circle to survive the purges, rose from her platform. Her pale Umbaran features were unreadable, but something in her eyes made Rex's hand drift toward his sidearm. The Republic faces an existential crisis. General Grievous's forces have captured 17 systems in the past week. Our military is in disarray following the disruption of the clone command structure, and we waste time debating whether the very soldiers we need should be treated as people or property. A compelling argument for the Clone Rights Act. Senator Moore, Bail Organa observed carefully. On the contrary, Moore's thin lips curved in what might have been a smile. I propose we table this debate indefinitely and focus on the immediate military situation. The clone's legal status can be determined after the current crisis has passed. Rex watched the Senate's reaction with growing unease. Moore's proposal was reasonable on its surface. Prioritize the war, deal with politics later. But something about the way she'd framed it, the subtle implication that clone rights were negotiable, sent warning signals through his combat-trained instincts. She's playing them, he murmured to Commander Wolf, who stood beside him with his distinctive cybernetic eye gleaming in the chamber's light. Of course she is, Wolf replied quietly. Moore was Palpatine's shadow for 15 years. You don't survive that long in a Sith Lord's inner circle without learning a few tricks. The debate continued for another hour, but Rex could see the momentum shifting. Moore's faction, comprised of former Palpatine loyalists, corporate interests, and senators who had never been comfortable with clone personhood, was gaining ground. Every mention of Grievous's advancing forces, every report of Republic casualties, strengthened their argument that military necessity trumped civil rights. By the time Chancellor Organa called for a recess, the Clone Rights Act was on life support. Rex found Padme in the corridor outside the chamber, her expression equal parts exhausted and furious. They're going to do it, she said without preamble. They're going to use Grievous as an excuse to suspend clone rights, and once those protections are gone, they'll never come back. Then we have to stop Grievous, Rex replied. Take away their excuse. It's not that simple. Padme glanced around, ensuring they weren't overheard. Moore isn't just exploiting the crisis, she's orchestrating it. My intelligence contacts have uncovered evidence that she's been in communication with separatist remnants for months. The timing of Grievous's offensive, the specific systems he's targeting, the way his attacks always seem to coincide with crucial Senate votes. It's too convenient to be coincidence. Rex felt the pieces clicking into place. She's coordinating with Grievous, using him to destabilize the Republic from the outside while she undermines it from within. And there's more. Padme's voice dropped to barely a whisper. The Mustafar facility that Anakin and Ahsoka discovered, Moore was listed as one of its administrators. She knew about Palpatine's clone project. She might even have been involved in creating it. The implications were staggering. If Moore had access to Palpatine's contingency plans, she could have been pulling strings since the moment of his death, positioning herself to inherit his legacy. We need to warn Anakin, Rex said urgently. If the dark clone he found is just one piece of a larger network, his comlink crackled with an emergency signal. Obi-Wan's voice, tight with controlled urgency, filled the corridor. All Republic forces, this is General Kenobi. Grievous's main fleet has broken through our defensive lines. He's heading directly for Coruscant with over 100 capital ships. Estimated arrival, 4 hours. Rex and Padme exchanged horrified looks. This is it, Padme breathed. Moore's endgame. Attack the capital while the Senate is paralyzed by infighting, force an emergency response that suspends civil governance, and emerge as the leader who saved the Republic. Her hands clenched into fists. She's going to pull a Palpatine. Not if we stop her. Rex was already moving toward the hangar bay. I need to coordinate our forces. If Grievous reaches Coruscant, the city will burn, Padme finished, and Sly Moore will use the ashes to build her throne. The alert sirens began to wail across the Senate district, their mournful cry echoing through the corridors of power. Citizens looked up in confusion, then fear, as the first reports of an incoming separatist armada spread through the holonet. On Mustafar, Anakin felt the disturbance in the Force like a knife to his heart. Coruscant was in danger. Padme was in danger. His children were in danger. We have to go, he said, turning from the dark clone who still stood frozen between redemption and rage. Now! You can't leave. The clone's voice was hoarse, uncertain. I haven't. You have a choice to make. Anakin said firmly. Come with us and help defend the Republic, or stay here and cling to a dead man's dreams. But decide fast, because I won't let my family die while I wait for you to find your conscience. The clone stared at him, yellow eyes flickering with emotions too complex to name. Then slowly, his red lightsaber deactivated. I don't know how to be anything other than what he made me, he said quietly. Then learn. Anakin extended his hand, not in threat, but in offer. That's what the rest of us do. Every day we choose who we want to be. Palpatine tried to take that choice away from the clones. From me, from you. Don't let him win. For a long moment, the dark clones simply stared at the offered hand. Behind them, Ahsoka and Rex waited in tense silence, ready to act if this fragile moment shattered into violence. Then Palpatine's creation, the son who had never been given a name, only a purpose, reached out and took Anakin's hand. I'll come with you, he said, but I can't promise I'll be what you want me to be. I don't want you to be anything except yourself. Anakin pulled him toward the hangar bay. Now let's go save the galaxy. We can figure out the rest later. They raced to their ships, the volcano's fire painting their shadows long against the obsidian walls. Somewhere ahead, Coruscant waited, along with everything they loved and everything they feared to lose. The final battle was coming, and the fate of the Republic would be decided in fire and lightning above the very heart of democracy itself. The sky above Coruscant burned with the light of 1,000 warships. Anakin's starfighter screamed through the chaos of the orbital battle, weaving between turbo-laser blasts and the burning hulks of destroyed vessels. Around him, Republic and Separatist forces clashed in the largest engagement since the war's supposed end. General Grievous had committed everything to this final assault, throwing his rebuilt armada against the heart of democracy itself. All fighters concentrate on the droid carriers. Admiral Yularin's voice crackled through the comm. If they deploy their ground forces, the civilian casualties will be catastrophic. Anakin banked hard, his mechanical hand dancing across the controls as he lined up a strafing run on the nearest carrier's shield generators. Behind him, Ahsoka and the Dark Clone, who had yet to choose a name for himself, flew in tight formation, their ships moving as extensions of their will. Shields down on Carrier 7, Ahsoka reported. Rex, you're clear for bombing run. The LA-AT gunships of the Clone Liberation Corps swept in, their missiles finding the exposed hull and tearing the massive vessel apart from within. Anakin felt a surge of fierce pride as he watched freed clones, soldiers who had chosen their loyalty rather than having it programmed, strike back against the forces that had tried to enslave them. But for every carrier they destroyed, 2 more emerged from hyperspace. Grievous had been planning this assault for months, stockpiling forces in the unknown regions, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And Sly Moore had given him that moment, ensuring the Republic's defenses were weakened by political infighting at the crucial hour. There are too many of them, the Dark Clone said, his voice carrying none of the rage that had defined him on Mustafar. Instead, Anakin heard something almost like wonder, as if seeing the galaxy through new eyes for the first time. How do you fight against odds like this? Together, Anakin replied simply. We fight together. A new signal cut through the battle chatter, Master Windu's voice, urgent and commanding. Skywalker, we've located Grievous. He's aboard his flagship, the Invisible Hand 2, coordinating the assault personally. If we can take him out, the droid forces will lose central command. I'm on my way. Anakin checked his tactical display, locating the massive Providence-class carrier at the center of the Separatist formation. Ahsoka, you and our new friend keep the fighters off me. Rex, I need a boarding team ready to deploy the moment I breach their hangar. Already moving, General. Rex's voice carried the steady confidence of a soldier who had faced impossible odds before and emerged victorious. The 501st is with you, the real 501st. Anakin smiled grimly. The 501st Legion had been the first unit fully liberated from chip control, their loyalty to Anakin now a matter of choice rather than programming. They had become the symbol of the Clone Liberation Corps, proof that freed soldiers could be just as effective, just as dedicated as their enslaved counterparts. The approach to the Invisible Hand 2 was a nightmare of defensive fire and droid interceptors. Anakin flew like a man possessed, the force flowing through him as he anticipated every attack, every obstacle, every chance for breakthrough. Behind him, Ahsoka and the Dark Clone carved a path through enemy fighters, their lightsaber-equipped starfighters leaving trails of destruction in their wake. "Hangar bay doors are opening," Rex reported. "Looks like Grievous wants company. Then let's not disappoint him." Anakin dove through the opening, his ship's landing gear barely deploying before he hit the deck and rolled into a combat stance. Around him, LAT gunships disgorged clone troopers who immediately engaged the battle droids flooding the hangar. Grievous waited at the far end of the bay, his 4 lightsabers already ignited, his mechanical body hunched in predatory anticipation. But he wasn't alone. Beside him stood Sly Moore, her pale features illuminated by the crimson glow of her own lightsaber, a weapon Anakin had never seen her carry before. "Skywalker," Grievous's vocabulator rendered the name as a curse. "I've been waiting for this moment since you destroyed my master's plans." "Palpatine wasn't your master," Anakin said, his blue blade humming to life. "He was using you just like he used everyone else." "Perhaps." The cyborg general's eyes gleamed with something beyond mere programming, a hatred that had grown over years of humiliation and defeat. But his vision was correct. The Republic is weak, corrupt, unworthy of the galaxy it claims to govern. The empire he envisioned would have brought order from chaos. The empire he envisioned would have been built on slavery and genocide. Anakin advanced slowly, Rex and his troopers fanning out to engage the droid guards. "I've seen what Palpatine really wanted. A galaxy of subjects, not citizens. Obedience enforced through fear. That's not order. It's tyranny." Sly Moore stepped forward, her voice carrying the same cold authority she had wielded in the Senate. "You speak of things you don't understand, Skywalker. Palpatine's vision extended far beyond your limited comprehension. The Empire was never about one man's power. It was about stability, efficiency, the elimination of the chaos that democracy inevitably creates. And you think you can complete what he started?" Ahsoka landed beside Anakin, the Dark Clone close behind. "A bureaucrat and a broken cyborg, inheriting a Sith Lord's dreams?" Moore's smile was thin and cold. "I am far more than a bureaucrat, child. I was Palpatine's confidant for 15 years. I learned from the greatest manipulator the galaxy has ever known. And unlike my master, I have no desire for personal glory. I simply want what's best for the galaxy, even if the galaxy is too foolish to want it for itself." "The Senate will never accept you as Chancellor," Anakin said. "The Senate will accept whatever I tell them to accept." Moore's eyes flickered with dark side energy. "By the time this battle ends, Coruscant will be in ruins. The current government will be discredited for failing to protect the capital. And I will emerge as the leader who rebuilt from the ashes, just as Palpatine once did." She raised her lightsaber. "You could have been part of that future, Skywalker. You still could be. Join us, and I'll spare your precious family." Anakin felt the dark side reaching for him, trying to find purchase in his fear for Padme and the twins. For one terrible moment, the temptation whispered at the edges of his mind. Surrender, compromise, do whatever it takes to keep them safe. Then he remembered Rex, standing beside him by choice rather than compulsion. Ahsoka, who had walked away from the Jedi Order rather than betray her principles. The Dark Clone, struggling to become more than his programming. Millions of clones across the galaxy, fighting to be recognized as people rather than property. They were all counting on him. Not because he was the chosen one, not because of some prophecy or destiny, but because he had chosen to stand with them. "My family wouldn't want to be saved by my surrender," Anakin said quietly, "and I wouldn't want to face them if I bought their safety with someone else's freedom." Moore's expression hardened. "Then you've chosen death. Grievous. Kill them all." The battle erupted with savage intensity. Grievous launched himself at Anakin, 4 lightsabers spinning in deadly arcs, while Moore engaged Ahsoka with a precision that revealed decades of secret training. The Dark Clone found himself facing a squad of Magna Guards, their electrostaffs crackling as they pressed their attack. Rex and his troopers fought with desperate courage, holding the line against wave after wave of battle droids. For every droid they destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. The hangar bay became a maelstrom of blaster fire and lightsaber clashes. The fate of the Republic balanced on a knife's edge. Anakin and Grievous traded blows with blinding speed, neither able to gain decisive advantage. The cyborg general had been rebuilt since their last encounter, his systems upgraded, his combat protocols refined. But Anakin had grown too, not just in power, but in wisdom. He no longer fought with the reckless aggression of his youth, but with the controlled intensity of a true Jedi master. "You're holding back," Grievous snarled, pressing his attack. "The old Skywalker would have tried to overwhelm me with raw power." The old Skywalker had a lot to learn. Anakin deflected a strike that would have taken his head, countering with a precise thrust that forced Grievous to sacrifice one of his arms to avoid a killing blow. Power without control is just another form of weakness. Across the hangar, Ahsoka was being driven back by Moore's relentless assault. The Umbaran fought with a cold efficiency that contrasted sharply with Ahsoka's more acrobatic style, each strike calculated to exploit the smallest opening. "You should have stayed in exile, Tano," Moore hissed. "You could have lived out your days in obscurity while the adults reshaped the galaxy." "And miss all this fun?" Ahsoka ducked under a decapitating strike, her white blades flashing in counterattack. "Not a chance." But she was tiring. Moore showed no signs of fatigue, her connection to the dark side sustaining her beyond normal limits. Another few minutes, and Ahsoka would make a mistake. Then the dark clone was there, his red blade intercepting Moore's killing stroke. "Two against one seems more fair," he said, and there was something almost like humor in his voice. Moore's eyes widened in recognition. You're supposed to be loyal to Palpatine's vision." "I was supposed to be a lot of things." The clone pressed his attack alongside Ahsoka, their different styles complementing each other in ways neither had expected. "Turns out I get to choose for myself now." Anakin felt the shift in the battle's momentum. With Ahsoka and the Dark Clone engaging more, he could focus entirely on Grievous. He reached deep into the Force, not for power, but for clarity, seeing the patterns in the cyborg's attacks, the weaknesses in his rebuilt systems, the split-second delays between thought and action. "It's over, Grievous," Anakin said, deflecting another four-armed assault. "Your fleet is being destroyed. Your allies are failing. Even if you kill me, you can't win this battle." "Then I'll die knowing I took you with me." Grievous lunged forward with all four blades in a final desperate attack. Anakin didn't meet force with force. Instead, he stepped aside, letting the attack pass harmlessly by, and brought his lightsaber around in a single perfect arc. The blade passed through Grievous's central processor, ending the cyborg general's long war in an instant. The droid forces across the hangar stuttered as their command signal died. Rex and his troopers surged forward, capitalizing on the confusion to destroy the remaining opposition. Within minutes, the battle for the Invisible Hand 2 was over. Moore, seeing her ally fallen and her forces collapsing, made a desperate break for an escape pod. But Ahsoka and the Dark Clone moved to cut her off, their blades crossing to bar her path. "It's finished," Ahsoka said. "Surrender and face justice." For a moment, Moore's cold composure cracked, revealing the fear beneath. Then she straightened, her expression smoothing into resignation. "You've won nothing," she said quietly. "The Empire was inevitable. If not Palpatine, if not me, then someone else. The galaxy wants to be ruled. It craves order, stability, the illusion of safety. Democracy is a pleasant fiction that collapses the moment it faces genuine crisis. You'll see. Give it a generation, and you'll be fighting this same battle all over again." "Maybe," Anakin said, approaching with his lightsaber still ignited. "But that's the thing about democracy. It gives people the chance to be better, to learn from their mistakes. Palpatine tried to take that chance away. So did you." He deactivated his blade, nodding to Rex. "Take her into custody. She'll stand trial for treason." As clone troopers secured the prisoner, Anakin looked out through the hangar's magnetic field at the battle still raging beyond. But even as he watched, he could see the tide turning. Without Grievous's coordination, the Separatist fleet was fragmenting, individual captains retreating or surrendering as Republic reinforcements arrived. Coruscant would survive. The Republic would endure. And somewhere in the chaos of that burning sky, Anakin Skywalker allowed himself to hope that the future might be brighter than the darkness they'd escaped. The war officially ended 3 weeks later, without Grievous to command them and without Sly Moore to manipulate the political situation. The remaining separatist forces either surrendered or scattered to the Outer Rim. The Senate, shaken by how close they had come to catastrophe, passed the Clone Rights Act with an overwhelming majority. Senator Thalmus and his banking clan allies faced investigation for war profiteering. Sly Moore awaited trial for treason, her secret slowly unraveling under interrogation. Anakin Skywalker stood in the rebuilt Jedi Temple Gardens, watching his children play under Padme's watchful eye. Luke chased a butterfly while Leia sat contentedly in her mother's lap, already displaying the stubborn intelligence that would define her life. The nightmares of Padme's death had finally stopped, not because of dark side power, but because the future they had feared was no longer inevitable. Beside him, the dark clone, who had finally chosen the name Kira, an ancient word meaning rebirth, meditated in silence. His eyes had faded from yellow to a troubled amber, the dark side's grip loosening with each passing day. The road to redemption would be long, but he had taken the first steps. Rex approached with a datapad, his armor bearing the new insignia of the Clone Veterans Association. General, the last batch of chip removals was completed this morning. Every clone in the Grand Army is now free. Anakin felt the weight of that statement settle into his bones. Millions of soldiers, no longer slaves to hidden programming. Millions of choices, freely made. What will they do now, he asked. Rex smiled, a genuine expression that Anakin had rarely seen during the war years. Whatever they want, sir. Some are staying with the military. Others are becoming farmers, teachers, artists. A few are even running for local office. He paused, something like wonder in his voice. We get to find out who we are when we're not just soldiers. That's something I never thought I'd have. In the distance, Master Yoda hobbled through the gardens, deep in conversation with Obi-Wan about reforms to the Jedi Code. Ahsoka sparred with younglings in the training courtyard, her laughter carrying on the wind. Mace Windu reviewed security protocols with temple guards, ever vigilant against the shadows that might return. The Republic wasn't perfect. It never would be. There would be other crises, other challenges, other moments when darkness seemed poised to triumph. But they had proven something important in these desperate months, that free beings working together could overcome even the most carefully laid schemes of tyranny. Padme caught Anakin's eye across the garden, her smile carrying all the love and hope they had almost lost. He smiled back, feeling the Force flow around him like a warm current, connecting everything and everyone in its embrace. The Sith were defeated, the clones were free, and the future, uncertain as always, belonged to those brave enough to fight for it. May the Force be with them, always.